As part of COSN's focus on the value of educational technology, the organization convened a roundtable discussion at its annual conference in San Francisco, in which participants debated whether interactive whiteboards are worth the investment. Doug Brown is among those who believe they are.
Overall, the research, and we've done a considerable amount of research on this, identified that in terms of some of the use of the whiteboards, pace of lessons was improving, motivation was improving, student engagement was improving, and teacher preparation was improving. And that goes back to my earlier point. One of the things that came out was the fact that teachers began to share their practice more. They were actually producing material for the whiteboard and sharing it with whoever it was they were working with. So there was a sort of peer review going on which improved the quality of what everybody was doing. A total side effect that we weren't actually expecting, but something that was really quite sort of significant.
Brown is the head of learning technologies for the UK's Department of Education and Skills, which has invested $100 million in electronic whiteboards and other technologies. As a result, more than half of all Britain's classrooms now have the devices. And though teachers have found them to be user-friendly, not all are yet using the boards to their full potential, he acknowledges.
If you look at some of the activity in the UK, you will find some appalling teaching using whiteboards. All they are used for is electronic blackboards, and that's a real issue. This is not about the technology, it is actually about the teaching. And the findings we have all through this is it really depends on the teachers, and it really depends on the teaching. But interactive whiteboards can be transformative, and standards can actually rise as a result.
Of the Blue Valley School District in Kansas is in the other camp. Blue Valley considered installing boards in 1,000 classrooms, but is now holding on to its $4 million and is looking at other ways to spend this money to get more bang for its buck.
At least as I look at the research, and that the value proposition is somewhat inconclusive. In fact, I would say not somewhat inconclusive. The value proposition is actually inconclusive as to interactive whiteboards. And we had a technology advisory committee that was filled with parents and board members and teachers and administrators who were very excited about the possibility of putting interactive whiteboards in every classroom in the district. And because a few schools had purchased them with some of their own funds, they had used parent club funds to purchase them and other kinds of funds, and so they were really excited because they were hearing these really exciting things about it. So I thought what I would do, trying to be a neutral chair of the committee, I called one of our principals who I knew had invested in interactive whiteboards in their school, in his school, and said, you know, I'd like you to send your absolute best teacher that you have, who you think is just the most outstanding teacher as far as using interactive whiteboards. And I'd like you to have them come up, and you come up with him or her to the technology advisory committee. We'll put a board up in the committee room with the projector, so the setup is we'll mimic this classroom situation for this teacher, and we'd like for that teacher to take us through a lesson. We'd like for them to show us how they use an interactive whiteboard in their classroom. And so this teacher went through about a 30-minute different kinds of demonstrations and lessons in terms of how they use interactive whiteboards. And there were two comments that came out of that particular session that I thought were very telling and very quickly turned our committee's thinking in terms of use of interactive whiteboards. A board member asked the parent, or asked the teacher, you know, what's really the best thing about using interactive whiteboard in your classroom? And the teacher said, you know, what I really like about it, it allows me to do all these great things I've always been doing, but I'm a lot more efficient. And then after and this will make a connection here in just a moment. After the teacher left and the principal left, and I said, okay, now we don't have to be nice anymore. We're on our committee. Let's just talk very bluntly about what we saw. And the reaction of parents on the committee was what they thought is that what they saw was, frankly, in their term, a glorified use of transparency technology.
Mitchell's response?
We typically talk about adults in a project like this. We're talking about teachers, and in Forsyth, we very quickly saw that, you know, obviously this would be a great opportunity for the classroom if we could get these systems installed. but our focus was on the students. And I'll tell you how this came to be. It was a $5.4 million investment for us, and the presenter to the board for the board item was a second grader. And we had the board set up, and so she proceeded to talk to the board about this Lewis and Clark expedition project that she was working on, and then she turned her attention to the board, and she was small enough that the board was much taller than her, so she had a stool that she would bounce up and down on, and it was on wheels. And she then crafted for the board this project she had been working on for the Lewis and Clark expedition. And then I got up and said, well, it's $5.4 million. And they says, whatever the second grader wants. And I think
Mitchell said that for his district, whiteboards do offer a good value on their investment.
Teachers, I think, are highly creative. And the ability to create materials, to collaborate, to share. I think on the financial investment side, that same teacher I described to you that had students working in the classroom also whispered that, since you've given me this board, I'm really not using the textbook. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but the reality is I can harvest information off a net tracker and create my own flip charts that are a lot more engaging and exciting to the students than anything I would get out of the chapters of the book. And we spend $2.2 million a year on textbooks. So a $5.4 million investment, and we're spending, we're going to see the return in less reliance on those traditional materials and buckets full of manipulatives. The really expensive Tupperware kits, we're going to virtual manipulatives. That's all part of the software suite. These being able to interact with these learning objects up on the whiteboard. And I really can't overemphasize the fact that students demand interactivity.
Here's how Moore responded.
We can see teachers that you can put them in the middle of a cornfield and they can be outstanding teachers and use whatever tools available to them, and they will engage students in ways that the students will just not let go. You can also give some teachers, and this is going to sound harsh, but it is a reality, the most incredible technological tools and even excellent professional development, and they just will not be able to do what we would expect them or hope that they could do with their students. Unfortunately, I think that the danger here is looking at a technological tool as a transformative agent. Technological tools, in my mind, are not transformative agents. Changes in the way we think, changes in practice that can be enabled by technological tools can be transformative, but the technology in and of itself really isn't. Because what you really see when you go into, and we have a number of classrooms in our district that have interactive whiteboards, that unfortunately the only people they're interactive for is the classroom teacher. They're not interactive for the student. The other thing I think when you look at the value proposition or the money is you ask yourself, okay, if we buy into the proposition that some of the capabilities that are there with interactive whiteboards, that they're valuable capabilities in terms of annotation, in terms of saving materials and bringing them back, and manipulation of images and text and those kinds of things. I can certainly buy into that, that's very valuable to be able to do that. There are other ways to be able to do it. I don't think that people should get drawn into thinking, if I have to decide where I'm going to spend my money, if I want this capability, I have to purchase an interactive whiteboard if I'm going to be able to do that, because there are other ways to do it, which frankly are every bit as interactive, that they provide the same types of capabilities.
Smart Technologies is a leading maker of interactive whiteboards for schools. Here's what Smart had to say about some of the issues raised during this session.
We have seen many educators and districts that have implemented smartboard interactive whiteboards into their environments, and they have found an increase in student participation. Students that were not normally raising their hands and wanting to participate in the classroom are now more engaged. They want to come to the front, they want to write, they want to participate in the lesson, and that is also translated into higher test scores in some of those areas.
Bottom line for schools, there is no one right answer. It depends on each district's goals.